I'm just. What's that? Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to take this next.
You get out of my home!
And that's going to be my man Robbie B, the English game cat, so posh, with the 10 dono saying welcome to the viewer takeover.
This is Viewer Takeover. We film every Monday night and we bring it to YouTube every Tuesday, almost every Tuesday. I know. I break that promise all the time. My name's Brian Paul, the promise breaker from PSVR without parole, right here, this channel, and the guys to my right, the boys, Dave from Station.
VR. I'll let.
Nailed it.
Yeah, there's text right underneath of this. I'm Dave Station. I want to say, Brian, don't call yourself the promise breaker. Last time the hurricane was the promise breaker. That's why we didn't get it out on time. So it's not on you.
Listen, man, I fall on the sword constantly around here. And that guy on the far right-hand side of the screen is AJ from the Underground. PSVR Underground.
What is up, guys? It is PS5 week. Man, we just got done playing the Alvo beta and streaming that for everybody. We're going to have our PS5s Thursday. I cannot wait. Next gen is 2 days away.
Yeah, and those adapters are on their way, guys. If you haven't got a confirmation from Sony, don't worry, because they're just showing up out of nowhere. So,
and if you're one of the many people who, for some reason, don't know that you need a camera adapter to play your PlayStation 4 VR games on PlayStation 5, I will put that link in the description below. So make sure you click that and get your order in for free so you get that adapter as soon as possible. And every week on Viewer Takeover, we like to thank a whole lot of people before we get the show rolling. And the first person we want to thank, Robbie B, the English game cat, for that fantastic Viewer Takeover introduction.
Has anyone ever impersonated you before, AJ? Is that the first time on camera that somebody's like...
I'm pretty sure that's the first time, and that will forever be the best time. Robbie B, my man, that was amazing, man. That was really, really funny. One of the funniest I've ever seen.
You know he's an artist because of how well he painted on that beard. You know what I mean?
I hope that wasn't like shoe polish or something.
It's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. Right. I like that he not only impersonated AJ, but he also made his wall impersonate AJ's wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Such attention to detail there. So much attention to detail.
But of course, Robbie B is not the only person we want to thank. We also want to thank these people down here, the people who went to patreon.com/withoutparole. And they're the ones giving us $1 or more every single month because they love us almost as much as we love them. That's my William Shatner impersonation. It's horrible. So sorry about that. Yeah, man, hopefully it's just $1 to you, but man, it means the world to us when you all come together and throw lots of $1 at us. I feel like a fucking stripper and I love every second of it.
This is going much better than the previous text.
This is the third time. AJ, who else do we want to thank this week?
We would like to thank those who changed their name to something GameCat, something GameCat related, or something GameCat adjacent, as you, Brian, or something GameCat adjacent would like to say. And this week, we have 4 new GameCats to welcome to the GameCat Dojo.
Big numbers. What do we got?
Starting with, I'm your hashtag GameCat now, Nancy.
I think we've decided that this is a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Probably.
So. It's got to be a movie quote for sure. Yeah. But it's hotcakes, right? It's always hotcakes.
Totally hotcakes, for sure.
We've also got GamerChick13 _ the Diet Pepsi Cat.
Oh, yeah.
And as we already decided,
Dirt
Tiffany.
Coke. What do they call it?
Dirt Coke.
We call it Dirt Coke on the Discord. Rypop, our mod, loves calling it Dirt Coke.
Yeah.
She is actually, if you guys don't know, one of the developers of Saints and Sinners, which is like
name drop
game ever. Sorry, but she changed her name to GameCat. That's a big get.
Only just a member of.
I'm just saying.
Very cool. She made that game all by herself. And finally,
we have the aura of PSVR. Hashtag GameCat.
Oh.
Alrighty then.
Does anyone have like one of those ringing bells?
No.
I wish I had one.
Dave, thank you everyone who changed your name to GameCat. If you change your name to GameCat, make sure you put hashtag GameCat in the comments below so we can give you a shout out on next week's show. But Dave, what do we really do here on Viewer Takeover?
Well, really, Viewer Takeover is about tirelessly scouring the internet until we find enough questions that we like from either Discord or YouTube, regardless of where you put them. As long as there's a hashtag Viewer Takeover in it, we'll find you, we'll hunt you down, and we'll put you on blast in public and answer your question. So if you were unlucky enough to be one of these 3 people, we're going to talk to you directly right now, and that's what we do. So, Brian, what's the first question here?
So sorry in advance if we make fun of you.
Yeah.
First question comes to us from Vargel over on the Discord. And just a heads up, spoiler warning, he submitted this question about 2 days ago. So today's news, he was not aware of quite yet. He writes, #viewer takeover. Do you think that with the launch of the PlayStation 5, more PSVR developers will start using dynamic resolution to allow some benefits of the PS5 to trickle down to PSVR owners?
Well, first of all, I mean, we got to give him some credit for having the psychic ability to realize something was going to happen here. The foresight. The truth is, when it comes to dynamic resolution, that is going to be something that will be interesting to find out. That is a supported way that they could possibly use to take advantage of the PS5 hardware, which we want. That's what we've wanted. That is the great news that we received today with Blood and Truth, that now it has a PS5 patch that brings higher resolution, higher frame rates up to 90 frames per second, the highest detail assets used at all times, and improved texture details. This is huge news. This just broke yesterday, technically. And this is a big deal. Now, I don't know how it works. I don't know if they increase it, put a cap on it, if they use dynamic resolution or something like that. I don't actually know all the ways that can work.
AJ, we're fortunate in the fact that we don't need to know how to make video games.
We just talk about them.
We just reap the benefits, and this sounds like a fucking great step forward that we were all really hoping for.
Don't explain the magic trick; just show it to me. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. But this is really exciting stuff, and kind of goes along with what we've heard, but is a good sort of representation of what we heard. We didn't know what it meant, so like they've said publicly, games with dynamic or variable resolution and frame rate will get a boost on the PS5. And so what we're seeing here is a game actually taking advantage of that. And nobody else has come out yet and said, hey, we're going to do this. But I think it's important that it's a Sony developer, like an in-house Sony studio, because, you see stuff like Astrobot that is like the most crisp, well implemented game on PSVR, to a certain degree. But like, that's because they're a Sony studio. They have so much knowledge of the hardware they've worked with for so long. And I think that we'll see Sony studios starting to do this first before they let other people do it. Like No Man's Sky came out and said, we're not doing that. We can't talk about that yet. Whereas, a Sony studio says, yeah, we can do that. We're doing that. So that's an exciting thing to see. As far as we know, I mean, we got to go with what we have.
They did say there's a little bit of mixed messaging there, but I 100% agree with you that because this is a first-party studio, they're likely to have access to a PS5 and can already start testing this out and seeing, they could even use a PS4 dev kit, test it out, and then try it on a PS5 and see how it works. They might even have PS5 dev kits available already. So they're going to focus on the launch first. I would think they're going to they're going to allocate everything they have, all resources, into getting as many PS5s out in the wild as possible. And then you would start to think that they would start sending out developer kits for PS5 for people to take a look at.
It does seem like the wording that they're using, it does make it sound like that we already have the patch. Like they sort of secretly, they updated the game, didn't really give us all the information, and then bam, as it turns out, we have the PlayStation 5 patch already. And of course, that leads to so many questions in terms of like what other games have already backdoored this update. We were talking recently about how Resident Evil 7 got an update in like September, but the patch note said nothing, and everybody on Reddit was like, "What's the update all about? Like, it doesn't say anything. What could it possibly be for?" I think Job Simulator just got an update recently that actually said in the patch notes that it upped the resolution, but you jump in and you go, "I can't see any difference here." So maybe these are all patches that went out in preparation for the PlayStation 5 launch.
Yeah, and that's exciting stuff because, like, we haven't heard from Sony directly, but developers are starting to trickle out information. And I think the fact that a Sony developer was allowed to say something about this is a step in a direction that means we're going to see more stuff like this, We were kind of cynical or, like, negative, like, this isn't going to happen. They already told us, like, we're not getting it. So there's a little bit of excitement back in here. I
Yeah, I definitely kept an open mind, even though there was outlets telling this. I wasn't exactly sure. Something just didn't seem 100% clear. So I still had a little bit of hope that, like, hey, we still might get this, even though it seems, I don't blame everybody for Sony's silence on the matter, because that certainly didn't help anything. But that being said, you know. This is being Blood and Truth is being played via backwards compatibility and going to get these benefits. I'm very curious, despite what some reports are saying, I'm very curious to actually get my hands on No Man's Sky once this patch releases and see if there are some benefits graphically right out the gate like this.
My money's on Hitman before No Man's Sky. I think Hitman's going to have these, if it's possible. I think they'll have these before No Man's Sky does.
The footage,
100%.
At launch, I think so. Yeah.
The footage, some of the tweets that they've sent out on Hitman 3, that I looked at that and I'm just like, there's no way that's running on a PS4. It looks too good. And of course, maybe it's possible because it's like the end of the console cycle, and people really know how to get the most out of the systems by then. But man, it looked stunning, so I cannot wait to see that either.
Well, I'll tell you,
it'll be funny to see too. Like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Quick thought. But like games like Job Sim getting updates, how much can you improve Job Sim on a PS5?
I don't know.
Like that's what I'm saying.
Little.
Like how could you even improve Astrobot? Like it looks perfect. There's nothing to do. But there are games like No Man's Sky where you could have an appreciable update that you notice, and that's what I'm looking out for, because there's already so many things, like Job Sim that don't need another coat of paint. They're already just as good as they are. Like, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, Blood and Truth specifically, it's so funny, we say, oh, the footage that they're showing of Hitman couldn't possibly be PlayStation 4.
Looks like Truth. Yeah.
But then today I was looking at some old footage from launch Blood and Truth. I mean, obviously I'm playing on PlayStation 4 Pro, and I know that it doesn't look nearly as good on the OG, but the fact is you look at that footage and you're like, geez, this looks really, really good. And it's absolutely comparable to everything they're showing for Hitman 3. So, like, I'm very, very curious to see, because again, I looked at that old footage of Blood and Truth and was blown away by how good it looked on the social screen. But of course, then it's once you put on the headset that it all kind of becomes clear, quote unquote, right? We're gonna see what they talk about in their tweet is the highest detail assets are used at all times, which means all that stuff in the distance, that's all being rendered at its fullest capabilities. When you make a game like this, you have to make sure that those things are blurry until they get closer to you, and then you start adding the detail and adding the higher res textures, and that's the only way you can keep the frame rate up. But with the power of the PlayStation 5, that's all going to be different. You can't really see that on a social screen. Everything on the social screen kind of just looks okay all the time, like looks good all the time. But when you put on the headset, that's when you start noticing those, oh man, that's really blurry over there, and as it comes into focus, you're like, oh, that does look a whole lot better. And I think these are the things that are going to be very apparent from the get-go once you put on the headset.
Well, yeah, and especially like 90 frames a second, like that doesn't sound like, if you're just thinking about it, oh, what does 90 frames a second mean for me? In a VR game, that is very noticeable. The frame rate, the refresh rate is like, so you play Polybius at 120 or Chorix, you can tell how much smoother those games feel.
Absolutely.
And like as far as like motion sickness and everything, it's better for everyone.
Absolutely.
So to say a game like this that already looks this good can get 90 on the PS5 is gonna be a noticeable difference that you won't see on stream, because we can't go above 60 frames a second on stream. So like
also
you won't notice, but we'll notice, and you'll notice in the headset.
You said the magic word, Dave. Motion sickness. That is going to be huge for a lot of people. I remember hearing some people say that they had motion sickness from Blood and Truth. I definitely expect this to help combat that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And just as kind of a final word, I know people, I think Dave mentioned that people were being pretty cynical, saying that this is never going to happen. And we just, because of Sony's silence, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. I just want to point out that on the last week's episode of Viewer Takeover, I said, we don't know Sony's plans. We could still get PS5 patches. And I am so happy that I think Sony's doing the right thing right now. I know it doesn't make sense to anybody right now while we're in the midst of it, but you got to be able to see the forest through the trees. It's all going to make sense eventually. But right now you got to understand that like as much as Sony cares about VR, the market isn't there. So they don't really care if a bunch of people go, well, I'm selling my PSVR and I'm going to go buy Quest 2. Because what is that? 500,000 people that are going to jump ship. And then when they finally reveal the PSVR 2, like in a year or whatever it's going to be, they're going to bring millions of people to next gen VR. And it's just going to fucking dominate. And so you got to look at the big picture here and say that, yeah, Sony's being quiet, but they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation that has their plans all worked out. And just because they're not saying to you specifically, here's what we're going to do, doesn't mean they're not doing anything. This is total evidence that they've got a plan. And it's just, we're slowly going to find out what it is. And they don't want their fucking competitors to know what that is. This is, you can't
this
do
gives
that.
the players something in the meantime as well. So the ones that don't want to go somewhere else, don't have the money to go somewhere else, can't. This is nice. This is what everybody wanted, was because
100%.
They have something in the meantime.
Exactly.
And
This is
Brian,
the perfect stopgap.
I just want to say that was a very compelling last word on the subject. So I think we're ready to move on to the second question here.
Nice.
AJ, you want to take us off with the second question?
This one comes from Orseek, the Bug Snacks Game Cats.
Talking about bug snacks.
From the Discord, says #viewer takeover like a pro. With Blood and Truth receiving a PS5 patch, how to call them, whatever you like. Should we expect future PSVR games to look basic, low res on a PS4 because they must be PS4 titles? Just to pass certification, but really shine on the PS5. So what he's saying here is basically, could there possibly be a negative effect by these games going in, enhancing the features for the Pro and causing more strain on the PS4 versions?
Right.
So I
Like,
think, as far as negative effects go, like if you're one of those snobs who's like, this looks like PS2 graphics, then maybe, yeah. But allowing everybody to play these games is never a negative. It's always a positive. So I think if they have to make it run on PS4 and it's like you get a great new game that if you're on the OG doesn't look great, but you can still play it, you know, and on PS5 it's incredible. I think that's still good. That's a good thing.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about this question. It's almost like he's asking, developers just want to basically make a PS5 game and take full advantage of the PS5, but the only way they can do that is by making a PS4 title and then giving it a PS5 patch. Because that's
And
what's
that's true. That's
Right.
objectively true. Yeah.
right. So do you think they're going to care about the PlayStation 4 specific version
Yes.
when all they really
they'll
want to
have
do
to.
is just make the prettiest version that takes more advantage of the PlayStation 5?
I would think that they would actually prioritize and target a PS4 and a PS4 Pro first, and then try to get as much as they can, and with the PS5 and doing whatever they can to get the most out of that as well, because that's your biggest install base right now, and that's the best chance you have at the moment. So yeah, I think they will actually prioritize the other ones, and if they have to make a decision between enhancing the PS5 version or sacrificing the PS4 version, I think they're going to just, like I said, not do the PS5 upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that like it's not just oh, here's the PlayStation 4 version and here's the PlayStation 5 version. It's basically allowing the PlayStation 5 to use the PlayStation 4 version and enhance it. And so if you got to already be starting from a pretty decent point to make those enhancements worthwhile. And as AJ pointed out, like, I mean, a good majority of people are not going to immediately buy a PlayStation 5. A good majority of people will stay on the OG, on the Pro, and those are the people you need to make happy first and foremost. You know, well, I got to be honest. I'm just happy we have backwards compatibility. You know, that we have this dongle thing, so I don't have to keep my PlayStation 4 Pro set up still just to be able to play PSVR 1 games. And so all of these benefits are just kind of like icing on the cake.
So I think the backwards compatibility is definitely like the number one priority. But I have to disagree with you a little bit there, Brian, that I think that these enhancements, any way that they can, are actually very important. Something to get your current PSVR player base that wants to make the jump to PS5. Without these enhancements, you take away that reason, really, unless looking like way into the future. But I think this is overall a fantastic question from Orseek, and I think it'll be interesting to see, like, what developers kind of. I think it's more about the struggles and the issues that they run into versus whether or not they want to.
All I'm saying is that, like I said, backwards compatibility is the cake, and the icing on the cake is the extra stuff. Man, icing always makes cake better, unless you're Dave and he's crazy.
Here's another thing: muffins are better than cupcakes, but cupcakes are just muffins with icing on them.
Oh my god, I don't like anything you're saying right now.
Oh,
Muffins are better than cupcakes?
Have you had a coffee cake muffin and put it in the oven for a little bit with some butter on it? Oh, it's
actually, I actually really like blueberry muffins, and I like chocolate muffins.
Who am I talking to right now?
I kind of agree with Dave here.
Right, and really, a cupcake is just a muffin with icing on it.
Dave, who did our last question come to us from?
Well, our last question comes to us from the Discord, actually. Shout out to everybody who's signed up. The link is in the description, as we always tell you. This comes from Death Venus Blue, who says, with PS5 having the potential to significantly improve at least the speed, parentheses, frame rate and loading times, if not more of the graphical quality of some PSVR games, mostly over OG, will you bring up any of the differences between PS5 and PS4 in your reviews going forward? So the operative question here is, are we going to cover, how does this run on a PS5 versus a PS4? And I'm actually really interested to hear your guys' responses to this.
I mean, it's a tough situation, man, because I'm living in a 480 square foot apartment, and my entertainment center is overcrowded already. I'm gonna have to rework all of this before my PlayStation 5 even shows up. I'm gonna have to see if I have a way to easily jump back and forth between a PlayStation 4 Pro and a PlayStation 5, even just because even I remember when I got my Pro, I didn't sell my OG. Because I was like, well, obviously I'm going to switch back and forth and keep the differences in mind when I do reviews.
How long did that last?
It didn't. It never lasted.
Yes, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah.
It is. And so basically, I think all my reviews will just be like reviewed on a PlayStation 5. And if possible, obviously, I'm going to jump in and just like play a little bit on the PS4 Pro, and just to make sure that it's not ridiculously different, right? We want to make sure that we still respect all the PlayStation 4 gamers out there who haven't taking the next gen leap yet. Like you guys you're the majority, and just because we all decided to get a PlayStation 5, we don't want to leave you guys high and dry without the information that you need to make informed purchasing decisions. So I'm going to do my absolute best. I just don't know how it's going to work until the time comes.
So I think the important thing though is like games like Blood and Truth that we hear specifically, hey, PS5 has a noticeable difference. That's kind of where I would want to target, like, hey, this is the difference between the PS4 and the PS5, because really what we've heard otherwise is just loading times. And you guys don't need to hear me tell you the loading times are better on a PS5 because you've heard that for a year and a half. So I think just like Brian, I'm going to cover stuff on a PS5. I don't want to switch back and forth all the time, take the breakout box out and put the adapter in. I'm just going to sit on the PS5. But I think we know already that for most games, the experience is essentially the same with some better loading times. And until we hear differently, there's not a great reason to go like side by side Digital Foundry breakdown, like of anything.
Not on a regular basis, for at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when it comes up, we ought to do it, but like otherwise, I don't think so.
I'm definitely interested. So this is the thing. I have a Glacier White PS4 Pro. And it matches my PSVR. It matches my computer. My computer actually kind of looks like a PS5. I am very excited to have all of those together, and it's going to be a pain in the butt to kind of swap back and forth. So I'm going to try to minimize that as much as possible. However, just for knowledge purposes, yes, I will absolutely keep my PS4. I'm keeping my PS4 Pro. I'm not getting rid of it.
I am too, actually. I think everything's keep on around.
I am absolutely keeping it, and cannot wait to actually do some specific videos comparing a lot of games, load times, things like that, the benefits of using a PS5, because I imagine it's not just you can flip this patch off for the PS5. So it's going to, again, the majority of the player base is going to be on PS4s for now, and eventually it'll be something I phase out. But for right now, especially at the, such fresh launch, I'm absolutely keeping my PS4 around and keeping it and kind of playing it on both, just so I don't give people the wrong information.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you got to be careful that your computer tower doesn't get jealous that its new little brother is a little sleeker and a little cooler. Like, in case they look pretty much the same. I have the same tower as you have, and I know exactly what you mean. Like, it's a big ass PS5 right here.
The important thing to note here, I think, is that when I started reviewing games on Pro, the difference is I'm not going to say non-existent or negligible. Between the difference between the OG and the PS4 Pro.
Well, it's game dependent.
It's game dependent. It's developer dependent. It's how much work they decided to put into it. How much extra power they wanted to pull from the Pro. Like how much time did they want to do? At some point, Sony said, "Oh, all games have to have Pro support," and that just kind of fell by the wayside eventually. Like it was like, "Oh, actually, that doesn't have to be the case." And so some games have Pro support, some games don't have Pro support. But honestly, it doesn't substantially change the game play experience for almost any game. Except any game. There's like one or
Fantasy
two.
Monsters of the Deep
is
the only one I can think of.
And that's such a rare exception.
It's so unusual.
I could definitely think of some others, but I'm saving that for one more.
Sure, but the point is that like I wouldn't review. I mean, we're talking about 99% of all PlayStation VR games. I wouldn't review a game differently because the graphics were slightly improved, or the frame rate was slightly better, or there was there were these slightly better textures. Because as PlayStation VR gamers, and VR gamers as a whole, we're kind of used to the downgraded graphics, but we trade for immersion. And so when graphics are slightly better, I'm not going to be like, oh well, I'm going to give this a 9 instead of an 8.5. It's just it's the overall experience. So I don't think it's actually going to play as much of a role in reviews as this question makes it sound like it might.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be often like relevant for us to do. Like we've said already, like for the most part, it should be exactly the same. Just the load screen is shorter.
Yeah.
Unless somebody tells us different. So.
All right, you guys. I think that's going to do it for another episode of Viewer Takeover. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question. If you don't like the questions that we answered this week, the only person you have to blame is yourself because you didn't ask a better question. And if you did ask a better question, I'm sorry that we didn't pick it. That's also not our fault.
Everything's subjective.
That's right. Make sure you submit a Viewer Takeover introduction by sending it to withoutparole@gmail.com. Is that how email addresses work? Also,
pretty much.
Change your name to GameCat. #GameCat in the comments below. We'll give you a shout out on next week's show. For some patreon.com/withoutparole.
Games.
I think that's about covers it. Make sure you subscribe to Dave at Dave Station VR. Subscribe to AJ at The Underground. PSVR Underground. My name's Brian Paul from PSVR Without Parole. And we're out.
I got Chinese food the other night. And I've got a fortune cookie left over. So we're going to ask the fortune cookie a viewer takeover question, which is, what is the future of the PSVR 2?
Oh, so PSVR 2. I'm so excited. This is exclusive Without Parole first information.
So it was already cracked, apparently, so I can't do the fun crack. But here it is.
All cracks are fun.
Okay. So it says, here we go. I want to do the Karnak thing from Johnny Carson. Okay. It says, reading to the mind is what exercise is to the body.
When so I think fortune cookies...
No, hold on. I think they're saying just keep an eye out on the news. Just keep reading and you'll learn at some point, and it's good for you to just stay vigilant. That's the only thing I can take from it. But
I think it's bullshit. Yeah. When did fortune cookies stop predicting the future and just giving you words of wisdom to live by? That's bullshit.
Well, check this out. Actually, it says, how about another fortune?
Ooh.
Secondfortune.com. Somebody came up, the fortune cookies guys are like, you didn't like your first one? Why did you? So I'm going to go real quickly to secondfortune.com, and we're going to ask them what the future of the PSVR 2 is. So secondfortune.com. This is so stupid.
I wish I had a magic 8 ball. I should get a magic 8 ball.
I was going to say, isn't a magic 8 ball? I don't remember fortune cookies like predicting the future.
Okay, so here we go.
Oh,
this actually is. No, this one is specifically. I went to secondfortune.com, and it says, PSVR 2 related, in the near future, you will discover how fortunate you are. That's big news.
There you
That's
go.
Really good.
You heard it here first.
I like that one.
Yeah, you heard it from wontonfoodinc.com, who runs secondfortune.com.
You had no idea that they had inside information about the PSVR 2.
And now I'm going to eat this thing. I'm hungry.